Don't brag. In a remote valley shrouded in misty mountains, there stood an ancient Zen monastery. Within its walls lived monks devoted to cultivating wisdom and compassion. Not far from the temple, in a nearby village, lived a young man named Rio who dreamed of being admired for his intelligence and skill. Rio was talented at almost everything he tried. He mastered the art of archery, composed beautiful poems, and possessed an extraordinary memory. Yet, there was one thing that always troubled him. He felt others didn't admire him as much as he believed he deserved. One day, he heard that Master Hakuin, famous for his wisdom, would offer public teachings at the monastery. To Rio, this was the perfect chance to show off. "I will go," he thought, "and prove how much I know. Everyone will be amazed." So, at dawn, he set off with his bow slung over his shoulder and a scroll of poems tucked under his arm. When he arrived, many monks and villagers were gathered in the courtyard, waiting for the master. Rio pushed through with a proud air, greeting others with smiles full of arrogance. When Hakuin appeared, everyone bowed respectfully. The master, simple in appearance and calm in gaze, began to speak about the nature of humility. But Rio, impatient, raised his hand. "Master," he said loudly, "I have studied the sutras and arts for years. My aim is flawless, my verses profound, and my mind sharp. What more must I learn to be worthy of respect?" A heavy silence fell. All waited for the master's reply. Hakuin looked at him quietly for a long moment, then smiled gently. "Your quiver seems full of arrows," he answered. "But what use is an arrow if the archer shoots only to be seen?" His words echoed through the courtyard like the toll of a bell. Rio blushed, but straightened with pride, convinced he could prove his worth if given the chance. Seeing the look on Rio's face, Master Hakuin kindly invited him. "Come with me tomorrow at dawn to the forest clearing. Bring your bow. There you can show me your skill." Rio nodded eagerly, believing this would finally be the perfect stage to shine before the master and the monks. That night, he prepared carefully. He checked every arrow, tightened his bowstring, and memorized some poems just in case he had the chance to recite them. Sleep barely came as he imagined the admiring eyes that would be upon him. At dawn, he arrived at the clearing. Hakuin was already there, dressed simply, unarmed except for his bamboo staff. A few monks had silently gathered, drawn by the unusual meeting. "Rio," said Hakuin, "here is an old split log. If your aim is so precise, shoot an arrow through the knot at its center." Rio smiled. This will be easy, he thought. He knocked an arrow, aimed with grand theatricality to ensure all eyes were on him, and released the string. The arrow missed by just a bit, grazing the edge of the knot. Frowning, Rio took another arrow. This time, he breathed deeply and aimed with even greater emphasis. The arrow flew, and missed again by a small margin. A slight tremor ran through his hands. Without a word, Hakuin picked up a small fallen twig, held it gently between his fingers, and softly tossed it toward the knot. The twig floated through the air and landed, hanging there, trembling slightly as it touched the log. "Sometimes," the master said calmly, "lightness can reach what strength, weighed down by ego, cannot." Rio lowered his bow, breathing hard, his mind clouded. For the first time, he didn't know what to say. The clearing fell silent. The monks watched young Rio, who held his bow with sweaty hands, his pride wounded. Master Hakuin stepped forward and asked calmly, "Why did you want so badly to hit the mark today, Rio?" Still unsettled, the young man replied, "Because I wanted everyone to see how skilled I am. I wanted to show that I deserve respect, that I am worthy." Hakuin nodded gently. "And do you believe true respect comes from what one shows, or from who one is?" Rio fell silent. He didn't know how to answer. Then the master continued, "When bamboo grows, it makes no sound. When a flower blooms, it does not announce its beauty. It simply grows, it simply blooms. True merit doesn't seek to be seen. It simply is." Those words soaked into Rio like dew on dry earth. His breathing slowed. For a moment, the urge to boast faded away, leaving a new space within him. Sensing the change, Hakuin said, "Tomorrow we will return here, but this time do not bring your bow. Come alone with an empty mind." Rio nodded, confused, but felt he must obey. That night, he didn't prepare arrows or review poems. For the first time in a long while, he sat silently, gazing at the moon through his window. Something inside him was beginning to change. Dawn arrived with a clear sky. Rio walked to the forest clearing, just as the master had instructed, without his bow, without adornments, without any intention to show off. When he arrived, he found Hakuin sitting on a stone, quietly watching a flock of birds in flight. "Today," the master said, "just sit with me." Rio obeyed. The cool breeze gently touched his face. For a time he couldn't measure, they remained in silence. Then the master softly broke the stillness. "Look at those birds. Do you see how they fly? They don't wonder who's watching, nor do they strive to fly higher for admiration. They simply fly because that is their nature." Rio nodded, slowly understanding. "You," Hakuin continued, "have filled your life with skills so others would recognize you. But the value of what you do isn't found in others' applause. It lies in the purity of your intention. A true poem doesn't seek praise. A precise shot doesn't seek witnesses. They are simply expressions of inner harmony." The master's words resonated with a truth Rio was beginning to feel deep within. For the first time, he realized that his desire to show off was nothing but a veil that kept him from authenticity. "If you wish to walk the Zen path," Hakuin said, "you must leave behind the need to prove who you are. When you no longer need to boast, you will have truly begun to be free." Rio bowed his head in humility. The master smiled. "Come again tomorrow," he added. "Bring your bow this time, but remember, not to show off, but to understand." Rio left with a lighter heart. At dawn the next day, Rio took his bow, this time without anxiety or expectations. As he walked toward the forest clearing, he felt something had shifted inside him. The burning desire to impress no longer stirred within. When he arrived, Hakuin was waiting, silent as before. Beside him hung a small wooden target, suspended between two branches. "Today you will shoot," the master said, "but not for me or anyone else. Shoot as if no one is watching. Let your arrow be like the flight of a bird, without the aim to be admired, without weight in your heart." Rio breathed deeply. He knocked the arrow and felt steady hands. The fresh forest air wrapped around him. Without flourish or show, he aimed and released. The arrow flew clean and straight, striking the center of the target with a soft thud. Hakuin nodded with satisfaction. "Do you see?" he asked. "When you don't seek to show off, you act in harmony. Ego is a weight that diverts the arrow. Humility frees it." Rio understood, and a quiet peace blossomed in his heart. "Master," he said sincerely, "all my life I've sought recognition, but today I felt something different. I felt that the act itself, without adornment, is enough." Hakuin smiled gently. "When you realize there's no need to boast because you are already complete as you are, then you have found the true path." Rio bowed deeply in respect. The forest seemed more alive now, more present. He needed nothing more. Days passed. Rio continued visiting the monastery. Each morning, he practiced in the clearing, not to stand out, but as an act of full presence. The monks noticed the change in him. He no longer sought the spotlight. His movements were simple, his presence calm. One day, during a ceremony, a monk asked him, "Rio, you used to speak proudly of your skills. Now you remain silent. Why?" The young man smiled humbly. "I've realized that boasting is like throwing stones into a still pond. In the end, it only disturbs your own peace." The monk nodded. Nearby, Master Hakuin added, "Exactly. When someone boasts, they are really shouting their inner emptiness to the world. But when one acts from fullness, no words or recognition are needed." That night, Rio meditated deeply. He saw how tightly he had been bound to others' eyes. His need to be admired had been an invisible prison. Now he felt a new door opening, the door of authenticity. The next morning, walking to the forest, he noticed the birdsong, the gentle stream, the colors of dawn. For the first time, he wasn't lost within himself but open to the world just as it was. As days passed, Rio's transformation became clear to everyone at the monastery. He was no longer the restless youth craving attention, but someone who moved with naturalness and without pretension. Master Hakuin watched him with quiet pleasure. One morning, as they walked along a bamboo-lined path, he said, "Rio, true humility has blossomed in your heart. Don't mistake humility for weakness. The bamboo bends with the wind, yet it remains strong and flexible. So must the spirit be." Rio nodded. "Master, now I understand that the need to show off comes from the fear of not being enough. When one accepts oneself as is, the urge to prove anything fades away." Hakuin smiled warmly. "You've understood well. On the Zen path, the invisible is more precious than the visible. The river does not boast of its flow, nor the mountain of its height. They simply are." Hearing these words, Rio felt a deep sense of release. He realized that every action could be an expression of harmony, so long as it was free from the desire to stand out. From that day on, his gestures, words, and even his silences began to radiate an authenticity that inspired others. The monks would often say, "Before, Rio was like a flame burning bright to be seen. Now, he is like an ember that warms quietly from the heart." Months passed. Rio decided to remain at the monastery as Master Hakuin's disciple. His life grew simple, dedicated to practice and service without any show. One day, a group of young villagers arrived at the temple, eager to learn. Hearing of Rio's skill with the bow and his poems, they approached him. One, full of curiosity, asked, "Master Rio, show us your feats. They say you are the best." Rio smiled kindly and replied, "True art is not in spectacle, but in harmony with oneself. If you seek feats to admire, you will find only illusion. But if you wish to learn how to live with authenticity, then I will gladly walk with you." The young villagers fell silent. They understood they stood before someone who no longer needed admiration, for he had found his worth in the simplicity of being. From a distance, Master Hakuin listened and nodded with satisfaction. When the bamboo grows straight and strong, he thought, it no longer needs to prove its height, and so Rio continued on his path. He was neither the most famous nor the most celebrated, but his inner peace spoke louder than any applause. He had learned the deepest lesson, that he who does not boast reveals the greatness of a silent heart.